And welcome to Community Kitchen. Beautiful little rainy day out there, starting to make us think about winter, which of course when you're thinking about food, you think about comfort food and you think about warm things. This morning we're going to be talking to Alex Clark, who is now a regular guest each month, and she's going to be talking about the latest SBS Feast mag, and the whole special this month for June, is a curry adventure. So I'm sure we'll enjoy that. And of course, lemons with the winter coming up, we need to get our citrus in, and you may as well enjoy it with some delicious puds and some great stuff. And talking about how markets have had such a big influence and change on our lives. On Sunday, a lot of people go out shopping, and of course, they'd come across some interesting things. So we're going to be talking about markets. 10:30 this morning, we're going to be talking to an interesting little group that I've found locally up at Kilcoy, and I keep seeing this recipe club in the paper. So we're going to talk to Cheryl about where it all began and what's happening there, because they do some fantastic things. And Belinda Boyce from the Kite Festival, which is happening this weekend down in the Redcliffe area, 18th, 19th. They've got some great things happening, kites, of course. But we're going to be talking food and find out what's happening there. Food Revolution Day, of course. We talked about that last week with Jamie Oliver. May the 17th, and I think this is basically just to remind us that sometimes the simple skills of getting in the kitchen using a knife and a pan, it's not that hard and it's so rewarding. So we'll look at Revolution Day. We have to be reminded of that, because a lot of the old things that our grannies and our aunties have passed on to us just seem to have disappeared, and I think it's so nice if we can remember those great foods. Of course, it's something that you enjoy eating, especially wintertime for some reason. We seem to have so many beautiful tastes out there that we can enjoy. I think what we might do is we'll go to a song. When we come back, we'll be talking with Alex Clark from SBS. And you're back with Community Kitchen. We have our first guest online, Alex Clark, who's the editor for SBS Feast. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm always envious when I talk to you, as I always say. But now we're doing curries today, so I'm sure you've travelled and I'm sure you've experienced some wonderful things. Fantastic feature in there this month.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about our curry special. We started planning it a while ago, and the thing that I really loved about curries is that it just covers so many cultures. There's so many different cuisines and different countries that have their own take on curry, and some are obviously of the really fiery variety, but there's plenty out there that are milder as well. And we really wanted to showcase, only a snippet we can cover in the magazine, but just a little taste of the huge variety of curries that are out there.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the times when you say to people, do you like curry? Oh, no, I don't like hot food. But it's not necessarily true, is it? Because a curry doesn't necessarily have to be hot and fiery.
No, absolutely. And I think it's similar when people say I don't like spicy food, whereas, again, spices, when something is spiced, to me it just means it has all these wonderful kind of aromatics and flavours in it, and not necessarily that it's actually hot. So we've got some lovely, milder curries in here. I cooked one the other night, which was one of Christine Manfield's recipes, which is a curry leaf and chicken curry, and it's just, very, very mild, but with really beautiful flavours and a beautiful depth of flavour. And I think that's what's one of the wonderful things about curry, that you can, have that as your starting point all the way up to a really, five alarm fire of a vindaloo or something like that.
I noticed the little curry lighters are there, so you can actually see whether it's a hot curry or not when you're going through. Interesting to see Charmaine Solomon. Here's a person who has just cooked all of her life in Australia, and she's put some fantastic dimensions on food. I love the thing that she said, that she loves changing the world one curry at a time.
Yeah, I think, she's been someone who's just had such a huge influence on what Australians eat. I think when she first arrived in Australia, we were still at the fairly bland end of the spectrum, and she really introduced Australians to, a whole world of all different Asian cuisines, and really opened our palates up to a whole bunch of different flavours. So we were really pleased to get her on board for this special. And, beef rendang is just an absolute classic dish, and her version of that is absolutely delicious, as you can imagine.
David Thompson's interesting, isn't he? Someone, I mean, he's a guy that moved to Thailand and become such an acknowledged chef in Thai food.
Yeah, I think, usually in Feast magazine we try and, we often focus on people who are cooking from the food of their kind of family background, but occasionally in the world, obviously, there are people who have just become absolute experts in a cuisine that's not their own. And David Thompson is certainly one of the first names that spring to mind when you go down that path. So, yeah, he's an incredible Thai chef. I was actually lucky enough to eat at Nam in Bangkok a couple of months ago. And David was there and talked us through the menu, and we just ate so many absolutely incredible dishes, and it was one of the most amazing meals I've ever eaten. And again, we was so pleased that he was able to contribute a recipe for this issue as well, because he's certainly a real expert when it comes to Thai food, and I think especially kind of Thai fine dining, which is not so commonly seen here in Australia.
Which is fantastic. Now, when you're looking at places like Thailand, you're looking at places like India, so many regions dictate the sort of taste. Is that because of what they grow, or is it just the different cultures that are influenced in that area?
It's a little bit of both. When we were in Thailand recently, we were in southern Thailand, and there's quite a big Muslim influence there. So the curries that we were eating there had very different, flavours to the curries of the north. Down south, there was a lot more turmeric involved, so these lovely kind of bright yellow curries with a lot of seafood and things like that. So I think, it's both cultural and regional kind of things. As you said, what produce is available. I mean, the vindaloo that are so popular in Goa are a result of they think they're a result of the Portuguese going through that area hundreds of years ago and bringing with them, wine that had turned to vinegar, and that was then used in these vindaloos. So many great stories and histories and anecdotes associated with all these curries as well. Where did they come from, and what influences have played a part in them?
I think it's amazing too when you look at all the different types of food. I mean, one thing that you notice throughout the magazine, that there's such a broad spectrum on things, and really interested to read the article about the tapas bars, because not having been to Spain myself, but I have been to a couple of different tapas bars. And you've been there, no doubt?
No, I haven't actually. This was one of our writers. Carolyn Bohm was lucky enough to go there, so it's still on my list. But, yeah, after reading this story, I was like, sign me off. I want to check out all that amazing tapas they've got over there.
It seems to be like a little bit of a what would you call it, a breezy way to eat, because it seems that the beautiful hams and all these great things that they have on display within their bars themselves, and they get noted for some of their fantastic little selections of food that they create and give to their customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds wonderful the way you can just, wander between the bars. Each of the bars has their own, little specialty that they've perfected, and not a lot of washing up. Everything's on sticks. So, very, very simple. I can imagine, though, my consumption might get away with me somewhat, thinking, I'll just have one more, kind of forgetting about the 20 that I've already eaten earlier in the evening. So
I think that's a nice part of it, but you sort of, when you go, you can have all different selections. And I went to a place just recently, and seriously, I felt like saying to them, please just take everything back, and I'll just have a very, very large plate of that particular one, because it was, sometimes you just find something that's perfect to your taste, and you think, this is just perfect. It's what happens. Now, lemons, winter's coming, and of course, when you think back about your grandmas and all those sort of people, you would have started having a lot of citrus in your diet to actually look after the fact that you're going to have to worry about the winter blues. So you've covered lemons.
Yeah, lemons are just, beautiful citrus fruit. They're kind of very, very sunshiny and a wonderful thing to have on hand. And again, barely scratched the surface of what you can do with lemons, but we wanted to get some desserts in there to offset all our curries in this issue. So the shaker lemon tart, I think, was probably my favourite recipe out of out of this feature. And unlike a lemon curd tart, which is made with the lemon juice and perhaps a little bit of zest, this one's actually got slices of the whole lemons in there, and it's almost a marmalade-y kind of filling to it. You actually macerate the lemons in sugar overnight to really draw those juices out, and then create the filling and put it into a short crust pastry. So it's quite tart, but with that, I guess, then a kind of an underlying sweetness. And I really loved it. And it's not a tart that you see around a lot.
No, I haven't seen it. It said that the shaker community is no longer there, so it's something to look forward to trying. But I'm so pleased that SBS has featured that Lemon Delicious, because seriously, I think every child in Australia has had that at some stage on their table.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, growing up for me, it was a really, if Mum said she was going to do a Lemon Delicious, it was a really special night. It was like, wow, what's up? We're going to have Lemon Delicious. So it's one of those real Aussie favourites, I think, and should definitely be in every home cook's repertoire. It's something that just everyone loves, and it's a great dish to have on a winter night.
I think it's fantastic. And no more trips in tow?
Actually, I'm heading off tomorrow, so I'm heading to Italy and Croatia tomorrow to research a couple of stories, so looking forward to that, looking forward to some incredible food. I haven't been to Croatia before, and I think we're travelling along the coast, and I think it's a fabulous mixture of kind of Italian and Balkan or Yugoslavian food on the coast there, so I'm looking forward to lots of risotto and burek, and looks fabulous. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Fantastic. We look forward to talking to you in a month's time, and you can share some of those ventures with us.
Exactly. I'll be full of all my new food enthusiasms when I get back from that trip, so I'd love to talk to you about it then.
Safe travels. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye. And we've been talking to Alex Clark, and I say it all the time, what a great job. Just travels around, and Lucy and I are trying to work out a way that we can be doing something like that. I think that 101.5 really has to get on the road here or somewhere, and that'd be fantastic. We'll be back shortly after our sponsors. And welcome back. We have our next guest online, Cheryl Granter from Kilcoy. Good morning. How are you?
Hello, Annette. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've been following your little story in the paper each week, and I see this recipe club coming up, and then I see these great workshops. So I decided that it was interesting to find out what started all this, Cheryl. I mean, you said that you've been working on this for some time now.
Well, our recipe club has been going for going into its 7th year, and this is all sponsored by the Kilcoy Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we have a burden or a passion for sharing information to people, encouraging people to lead a healthy lifestyle, and surprisingly, it can be done very, very simply by just following, simple laws and rules of health. So that's what got us started. We thought, well, we'll do something in the community, even though it's only a little thing. We'll just get something started where we can encourage people to, take the information that we give and employ, put it into their lifestyle. We've had quite a successful program that's run now going on into our 7th year with quite a number of ladies and gentlemen coming to our recipe club and learning all different things that they can put into their lifestyle, different food. We encourage them to add more plant-based food to their diet, and we have healthy substitutes for dairy as well. So and we've had some encouraging results from that. Some people have come up to us and told us that they've changed their lifestyle in one way or another, and have positive results of that. So that encourages us to keep going.
I think it's wonderful. So when people go along to your club, there's a cooking demonstration and a sharing of recipes, because whilst you're cooking, you're actually following a vegan diet, aren't you?
Yes. Well, we're presenting vegan so that people have got an alternative to the average way of eating. Mm-hmm. being, eating meat and dairy and those sorts of things. We're just trying to give them alternatives to that, and hopefully they will like the recipes and then put it into practice in their home. And they are. I'm getting feedback from ladies, and one lady in particular has she's actually grabbed it by both hands, and she's now a vegan herself over a period of about 5 years. So she's found that her health has improved, remarkably since she's done that, and her weight has reduced. So that was a big plus as well.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it, that you can incorporate whilst you're actually saying, well, this is our style of cooking. Even if someone goes along and gets some ideas, as you were saying, to put a lot more plant-based into your diet, because it seems to be that a lot of the problems that we're having nowadays is that the food is so processed that a lot of people aren't recognising the fact that you can too produce that at home by using a chopping board and a knife and soaking different things. Yes,
exactly. And we of course encourage the use of whole food, as God made it, that it's whole and unprocessed, well, the least processed as possible. So, you require a knife and a chopping board for that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like in the radio show, we sort of cover so many things. And I think one of the things that I've been hearing for so long with people is that it's very, very hard to work out what some of these things are that are put in our foods all the time, and it's sort of created this situation that people are getting back to basics, and a lot of people are trying so hard to remove a lot of processed foods and items out of their diet, because we've found that we have children at such young ages suffering from obesity and diabetes, allergic reactions. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. And
we're having young men and women in their 30s, suffering heart attacks. I mean, that was unheard of. When I was a child, that's going back a few years. But so it points. It not only points to the food we eat. It also points to our lifestyle. Are we so busy that we don't exercise, that we don't have relaxing times? We have regular relaxing times once a week when we can share our family time together. That's important. Are we looking to see how much... there's simple things. We did a program in the very beginning that started us off. It was called 8 Steps to Vitality, and they were 8 powerful steps that improved our life, and they were simple, and it was just it was under a heading of New Start, and it just covered a whole lot of things that perhaps we need to think about and to put into practice in our lifestyle today. Nutrition, that's always a biggie, and then you've got exercise. That's becoming more noted in the paper, and people are pushing that we need to do more exercise. But do a lot of people know that we need to drink at least 2 litres of water a day to hydrate ourselves? And then there's sunshine. We're getting a lot of stuff about slip, slop, slap, and we're covering ourselves, but now we're having problems with people lacking in vitamin D because you've done too good a job. But it's important that we get sunshine in the morning and in the afternoon, and there's some period in the middle of the day when there's certain rays that are important to our body to produce the vitamin D in our skin. And then there's being moderate in all things, moderate in work, moderate in eating, moderate in what we watch. And then air. Breathing deeply and getting fresh air, and our rest. Are we getting enough rest each night? They reckon, studies show that the power hours are between 9 and 2 when our body and mind become, they recondition for the new day. And then there's also the spiritual aspect. So these 8, this is what we teach over a period of time in those 7 years. We keep encouraging people to remember all these things. Besides the cooking demonstration, we always have a talk of some sort. We have someone come in talking about how they can find protein in a plant-based diet. Where's their calcium coming from? That's important because most people think you can only get calcium from dairy foods, but the plant foods are filled with calcium. Your greens and all those sorts of things, and you're getting it in the right amount for your body to be able to absorb it.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you put it in such a simplistic way. And one thing I think, and you and I actually touched on that when we were conversing yesterday, is that when you go to a doctor, and we're not just pulling I'm not just pulling the medical industry here, but I'm just saying when you go to a doctor, a lot of the times you will find that very rarely will the doctor ask you of your dietary habits, as in your daily diet. And you were saying about sunshine. It's interesting to see also in doing my show, actually for about the same length of time as you've been doing your cooking demonstrations, I've noticed that a lot of people have sort of talked about the fact that they're so busy, and we've got a higher increase of people being given vitamin D tablets, whereas at the same time that relaxation of going out, working in your vegetable garden or doing something takes all of those places for you. It gives you the exercise, gives you the sunlight, it gives you all those things. So what you're saying is very basic plan to life, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. It's really getting back to basics that we've lost sight of because our lives have become so busy. And just putting a plug in there, we've got one of our programs we're running is the stress management, and we've had really good response to that. So there's obviously people out there who need help, in that area.
I think also at times one of those things, getting together and sharing a little bit of talk about these things can actually make it a lot less frightening. If you want to make a change into your life and do some things, I think sharing that with other people, you feel as if you're getting a little bit of help. But let's just go. You've got a workshop coming up, and we're going to be talking to Jana, who's a lifestyle counsellor, and you've got this workshop coming up, and I'm going to be talking to her about that workshop. And it's Sunday the 26th, but it's Clean and Green Workshop, homemade natural cleaning. And I thought that was interesting. It really struck me when I read the paper, because a lot of people are saying now, I can't use this, I can't use that because I've got, skin problems, and because when we don't know what's in half of the things that we're using in our home.
Yes, that's correct. And and Jana she's actually going to take us through each room of our home in the house, and show us things that we can use that are cheap, they're natural, they're ready available, and they're non-toxic and environmentally friendly. So you can't get better than that.
I think it's fantastic.
Yes, and she's going to also talk about stain removers, natural stain removers and natural pest control, which I'm really interested in, because I've always jibbed at spraying around our home, even the spiders on my veranda.
Yes.
I'd rather just vacuum them up and whatever, but I've always been loath to spray for cockroaches and things, so I've used baits. But if I can find a natural pest control, that would be really a boon for me.
I think the cleaning at the Farm Fantastic last year, we had a lady there, Rhonda Hetzel, and she has a Back to Basics book, and we made washing powder, and we did a comparative costing, and for us to make the same amount of powder which you purchase would cost $70.
Wow.
We made I think it was something like 10 litres for $7.
Wow. Isn't that great?
And it took about 5 minutes, me stirring, her chatting, us mixing it all up, pouring it in containers, and it was just such a saving of things, because it is one of those things in the supermarket shelving. It can be very expensive to buy cleaners. So tell me this: how do people make contact with you, and how do they find out about your recipe club?
Well, they can contact me on. Do you want me to give my phone number?
Yes, please do.
On 54981 and they can. I'm home most of the time. If not, I'm out in the garden. But they can leave a message if they happen to miss me because I'm outside. But and we're happy to have people visit. We have had people from as far away as Burpengary and Buderim come to our meetings. So obviously they thought the workshops were worth driving that far for. You were just saying, you mentioning yesterday that it's a Caboolture radio station,
yes.
And it mainly sends out signals in that area, although I think you said Woodford and Dag and Wham would be hearing this.
It just comes on the edge of Kilcoy there, but I mean, it's one of those things. I think it creeps into different areas, our sounds, but also I think the one beautiful thing about it, the costs for these workshops, $10. I mean, it's not expensive.
Yeah, and we have concessions for pensioners as well.
Yeah,
and you get a handout with that. So we're not looking to make money.
No.
We don't. We usually just cover our costs because we advertise, and that's not cheap.
No.
But yeah, we're wanting people to come, so we run it as the cheapest possible price we can, and still just cover our costs. So everyone is welcome. We've had young people there, young children, especially for our soap making. We had maybe 3 or 4 children there, it was a very popular program, the soap making. We might run it again, actually, in the next year or so. But we've got other programs planned that are coming up. We're hoping to run an organic gardening, maybe. Hopefully, we haven't got the details on it yet, but maybe in September, in spring, when gardeners start getting itchy-footed and wanting to get out in their garden.
That does happen, doesn't it? After the winter, you sort of get that feeling. Yeah. I think it's fantastic, and I congratulate you. That's a great job you guys have done up there, and we'll follow that along. And of course, I'll be able to let my listeners know when you have more workshops. But thank you for.
I'll let you know, Anna. Well, you live in our area anyway, so you see it in the paper.
I read the paper, so that's wonderful. Thanks for joining us this morning, Cheryl.
No worries. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Bye now.
Bye.
And we've been talking to Cheryl Granter, and of course that's the Recipe Club. You can get the local paper up there. It'll give the details. Of course, Cheryl is generously giving her home number, which is 54981217. I think we'll go to our sponsors and come back with our next guest. And welcome back. I have my next guest online, Belinda Boyce from the Kite Festival. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I bet you're hoping that it's going to be a beautiful sunny day on the weekend.
Fingers crossed. We've all been keeping our eye on the weather, that's for sure, and it looks like it's going to be a bright and sunny day and some good winds as well, which is also good for the festival.
I think it's amazing. It must be such a beautiful, colourful sight down there.
It is. Well, this year it's a lot different. So anyone who has been to it before is, I think, going to be blown away with everything that we've added into it this year. So I think it'll be very full of colour and very exciting. So
let's just talk about where is the festival being held?
So it's held at Pelican Park in Clontarf. So it's along Hornibrook Esplanade as you come over the bridge into Redcliffe.
I think it's going to be beautiful. Now, we talk about food here at our community kitchen, and I noticed you've got a few different things happening there with different demonstrations. Could you talk to us about what's happening?
Yeah, sure. So we've this year is the first time that we've added in a seafood and wine festival. So only a mini one for this year, but it's the new component for this festival. So we've got a seafood and wine kitchen, where we've got a number of local chefs and some wine professionals doing talks and cooking demonstrations. And we've also got a very special guest, Huey, who's coming along to do a cooking demonstration and some taste testing right after the festival.
I think Huey's used to cooking on site in lots of different places, so that shouldn't be a problem, should it?
I think so. No, he's very much looking forward to it, so we're very excited to have him.
I think also with Redcliffe area, of course, you're noted for beautiful seafood there all along the front. I think that's going to be fantastic, and it's on Saturday and Sunday.
It is, yeah. So Saturday 18th and Sunday the 19th. We've got going from 9 till 10 o'clock on the Saturday. We've got a Aussie Legends concert on the night time, and then Sunday, we've got it 9 till 4. So it's a big weekend. Lots happening, a number of different stages, heaps of entertainment, some fantastic food stalls, and yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
I think it's interesting too also you'll be having the kites, as in professionals no doubt showing us some of the fantastic kites. Will there be opportunities for people to be able to buy kites and do things like that?
Yeah, look, we have our great sponsor Kite Tower will be there on site selling some of their creations. We're very excited. We've got kite flyers from around the world coming. We've got our USA and Canada iQuad stunt team flying in tomorrow, followed by we've got a couple of guys from Japan coming over and a couple from New Zealand. Plus also the best kite flies that we have here in Australia are all coming this weekend to fly.
It's interesting, isn't it? A couple of weeks ago I was listening to a guy who is probably part of that organisation. He was talking about his love of kites.
Yep.
And he said that he was constantly in trouble with his wife because he'd go off to do something and come home with a brand new kite. And it was almost sounding like a kid in a lolly shop. And he said he just couldn't contain it because the kites are just so beautiful.
Yeah, look, the kite flyers are so passionate about it, and the president of the Kite Club, David White, has the exact same problem with his wife. They just recently moved, and he was refusing to throw out any of their kites. So, yeah, look, kiting is such a massive sport all throughout the world, which is, not a lot of people are aware of. Every weekend somewhere in the world there's a kite festival happening.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And this weekend it's here in Redcliffe.
I think that's wonderful. And also the fact is that families can actually go along, enjoy the waterfront there, and you don't have to necessarily even buy food if you don't want to. It's not going to cost. You can pack up a picnic if you want, and buy a bit of a treat there at the same time, which is just nice to get the families out and about, isn't it?
Yeah, look, definitely. People are welcome to bring their own food and drinks in. It should be a great weekend.
I think it's wonderful. Best of luck, and I really do hope the weather is going to be great. I mean, Sunday we went for a picnic on Bribie, and we thought it was going to be raining. We had a couple little squalls, but at the end of the day, it wasn't unpleasant at all. It was very, very nice. So let's hope that you have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Me too.
Bye, Belinda.
Thanks so much. Bye now.
And we've been talking to Belinda Boyce, and of course the Kite Festival is happening at Redcliffe on the 18th and 19th. Now, just to remind you about Food Revolution Day, which is May the 17th, get those knives and chopping boards out. Jamie Oliver's featured in the paper today talking about making a soup. Just get back and do something, whether it's something very simple, even if you haven't tried it before. Most people now have a computer. Get on there and Google something if you don't have a recipe book. As I say so often, if you don't have one, go to the library. It's amazing the different things you can find in the library. You can take some of the most beautiful books home, and who knows, you might get interested in cooking. One thing I did hear this morning coming down the radio, which I thought was quite interesting, insect farms. They're happening in the US, they're happening in Africa. It's considered to be a new form of protein that no doubt we're going to be seeing in our diets in the years to come. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be mixing ground grasshopper into my meals, but apparently if our food shortage is going to continue and we have dramas, it's going on. So the US do have insect farms going, Africa does, and even to the point they're talking about if we're not using it for protein, maybe it will become feed for our fish farms. So when you think about food, I mean, if you've ever been to some of the different countries in Thailand, when you're eating food on the streets there, it's nothing to have fried insects, and they taste fine because really they're crisp and they're crunchy, and you really don't know what's going on. We are such a wonderfully lucky country that in our daily lives we get to eat fresh produce. We have our own beef, we have our own fruit, grains, everything. We really have to respect this, and I think it brings me to my next little thing about our beef in Australia. Of course, everyone would have seen the latest thing about the abattoir in Egypt. Really, there are so many people who are dedicated to producing a beautiful beef, and you talk to some of these people up in the north and they're devastated when very negative things are put out in the press because it makes them look as if they're not nurturing their farm. They love their farm, they work hard, they're isolated, they do some amazing things, and I really think that before you make decisions about some of this stuff, you really have to look at the two sides with anything. I think it's one of those things. We have to support our farmers. We have to support our wheat growers. People who are growing in Australia. It's such an important thing. Think of the alternative. You might be eating grasshoppers in a few years if we don't look after our farmers, and we have to do that by making sure that you buy Australian, you buy local, you buy seasonal. Know where it's coming from. Find out whether that milk you're drinking really is milk or is it reconstituted powder that could be coming in from any other country that you wouldn't even know about. You've got to try and be a little bit more inquisitive as to what is going on to your family table. May the 17th, Food Revolution Day, make it a start maybe that you start thinking and you start supporting the farmers. That's my little thing. I just feel so passionate about the high costs for these guys at doing stuff and producing, and only last week, I think, or the week before, I was showing you the comparison of the costs of different fruit farmers that have just have to doze up orchards that have been in the families for years and years because we are importing a cheaper type of fruit from overseas, canned or frozen or whatever. We've got the local stuff here, guys. Let's enjoy it. We've had a great morning. Talked to Alex Clark, who always seems to be flitting around the country enjoying food. Quite envious, I can tell you. We'll be talking to her every month, so that's great. Cheryl from at the Recipe Club at Kilcoy, I think it's a great little thing. It doesn't cost much. You go along, you meet some new people, and even as Cheryl was mentioning, whilst you may not choose to have a vegan diet, at the same time you can put some of their clever ideas into your daily food. And Belinda Boyce from the Kite Festival, best of luck for the weekend, guys. And until next week, thanks for listening.